We're joined now by former Republican presidential candidate and Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, I want to start with the Hugh Hewitt interview with Donald Trump. Did we learn anything meaningful about his capacity to be president from that interview?
Well, I think it's a sign, as David Gergen pointed out, it's probably a sign of good sense on Trump's part. The truth is, no national leader knows anything about the head of Quds Force. So when they say they may have memorized the name, they don't know what school he went to, they don't know what faction he belongs to, they don't know whether or not he was in Moscow recently. I mean, this is not presidential stuff. He's going to hire a Secretary of State, he's going to hire a National Security Advisor, he's going to have a Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he's going to have a Secretary of Defense. The real question is, so what would you do about them?
Right. So when we're thinking about, you thought when you campaigned a lot about how to actually do stuff in this bureaucracy that we have. So talk to me a little bit about a business person comes in. George Shultz used to say, former Secretary of State, said, in the private sector, he would say, do this. And then he got into office and he'd say, do this, and nothing would happen.
Right.
So give us a realistic assessment of how a business person comes in and gets stuff done.
Well, I think that Secretary Shultz put his finger on exactly the crisis of American government. And it's been true at least since he was secretary in the 1980s. What will be fascinating if Trump does end up getting in, or for that matter, Carson or Fiorina, all of whom represent outside experiences. Are they prepared to go to the Congress and say, end the civil service system? I mean, you don't end, and there is a bill, Jeff Miller has a bill that came out of the House that would allow the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to fire any bureaucrat failing to serve veterans. Now, that's the beginning of a revolution. But until we're prepared to say, and 75% of the American people, according to Gallup, believe there is, quote, widespread corruption. Now, widespread corruption is a tough standard. 75% of the American people believe that government in America is now failing and that it needs to be radically changed.
I want to ask you about Donald Trump's immigration policy, because when you ran, and subsequently you said that the way that Republicans talked about immigration was harmful to the party. Donald Trump is talking about deporting all undocumented workers here. What's that going to do for the party?
Well, I think, first of all, we have no idea what the effect of Trump will be over 6 months or a year and how dramatically the messages will change. And he's now met with the head of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. He's about to meet with their board.
You think he's softening?
Well, I think he's modulating. I think he's learning. The one thing I've always found to be true with Trump is I think he learns faster than any other political figure I've known except Bill Clinton. And I think it's a big mistake to assume that the Donald Trump you saw yesterday is the Donald Trump you're going to see a month from now.
So where should he end up by your lights?
First of all, if you actually read the details of his plan, it's a touchback plan, which was fairly popular in 2007, and basically says, and most illegal immigrants would agree with this, basically says, you go back home, you file, and you come back in, you've now obeyed the law. And so he's not saying we're going to deport you permanently. I think there are lots of problems with it. We got off on in 2012, I don't believe in self-deportation. But I do think you could figure out ways to get much closer to that than people think. The reason Trump's having an impact, and I think the reason that Carson and Fiorina and Cruz are having an impact, and the four of them have to be seen as a team in a sense. They represent we're sick of all you regular guys. And I think it's because the American public has now been told, for example, Reagan's diary in 1986. He signs the immigration bill because we're going to control the border. Writes in his diary. 1986. Here we are 29 years later. And so the average American's gone, I just want somebody who's going to kick over the table, start a new game, and I don't care about the details.
So if there's a kick over the table mentality, how does Jeb Bush operate in such a place?
Look, I have a number of very good friends who are running, and I've thought a lot about if I were in their shoes. I don't know how you take this on. Because everybody said, well, President get down to Trump and somebody else. Yeah, right now it has. In Iowa, for example, it's Trump and it's Carson. Yeah. I mean, so explain, or South Carolina, it's Trump and Carson. Now, Kasich, to his credit, has cleverly focused his energy and his advertising in New Hampshire. So in New Hampshire it would be Trump and Kasich.
Mm-hmm. How would you, if you were running, how would you muscle in as somebody who's got that Washington?
I don't have a clue. I mean, and I don't say this lightly. I think about this every day. I think that there is a desire on the part of the American people, which I largely agree with, to profoundly change the current terms of American politics and government. And they want somebody, then they want them in different formats. I mean, they want calm, stable Dr. Carson. They want energetic CEO Carly Fiorina. They want aggressive, hard-charging Ted Cruz, or they want bombastic, loud. But he's running on something nobody in this city understands. He's running on winning. Mm-hmm. That's the heart of the Trump model is, I will make us a winner again. Do you want to be a winner? If you'd like to be a winner, I'll make us a winner. And then people come up with all these policy questions, and he goes, how'd you like to win? And Americans out there go, I like winning. Winning sounds pretty good to me.
All right, well, we'll see if he actually does do it. Speaker Gingrich, thanks so much for being with us. We'll be back in a minute.